All right, Algebra 3 students, here we are looking at Lesson 2.01, Greatest Common Factors and Special Products. So the example that oh, my cat just fell. She's all right. I think her pride is hurt. We're going to start with the example 3, 12VW to the 4th power plus 28 v to the 3rd power, w to the 6th power, and then plus 4v to the 7th power, w to the 8th power. So first we're going to talk about the factors of the coefficients there. So we have the 12, we have a positive 28, and we have 4. And if we think about factors of 12, usually I just start with 1 and I say, listen, 1, well, that's not what I wanted. 1 times 12 is 12. And 2 times 6 is 12. And 3 times 4 is 12. And we could write 4 and 3, but that's really the same as 3 and 4. We could also talk about -1 and -12, but we don't really need to worry about negatives at this point. Okay, so those are the factors of 12. When we're looking at the factors of 28, we have 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 3 does not go into 28 evenly, 4 times 7, and then again, we could do 7 times. There's no 5 doesn't go in, 6 doesn't go into 28, 7 does. But since we're starting here, or did I have 7 times 8? I meant 7 times 4. Sorry. So because we're starting back and we're hitting this one again, we can stop there. And lastly, with the 4, we have 1. Oh, that's hard to see, isn't it? I'm going to use a darker blue. 1 and 4, 2 and 2, and then 2 and 2, and we're done. All right. So when I look at those, the thing that I see, the biggest number that is in all of them is the 4. Great. So there's a 4, here's a 4, here's a 4. So that means that we can factor a 4 out of the expression. And when we do that, we write 4 and then times the quantity, that means parentheses, and we think of when we divide 12 by 4, we get 3. When we divide 28 by, oh, I need to put in the rest of that. It's a 3v w to the 4th. Plus, and now when we divide 28 by 4, we get 7. So that's going to be 7, v to the 3rd, w to the 6th. And then when we divide 4 by 4, we get 1. And I could write 1 here, but I don't need to. I can just write v to the 7th, w to the 8th. Questions about what I've done so far? All right. Yeah, let me just give you a moment. Whoops. Okay, great. So now I'm going to look at the VW to the 4th, and I'm going to use the same colors here for those terms that I did above. V cubed W to the 6th, and V to the 7th W to the 8th. So if we think about the factors of these, it's for V, it's just V. For V cubed, it's V, V, V. For V to the 7th, it's V, 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 V. And because there's only one here, then I can factor out one v from each of these right here. So I can factor out a v. So now on the outside, I have that 4, and I'm going to factor out, I'm going to underline with pink the v, the v, and the v. So I'm factoring out one v from each of those. So now I have 3, and when I factor out v from there, it just leaves a 1, w to the 4th. So now I just have w to the 4th. When I factor out a v from the v cubed, I'm left with v squared, because it's v times v times v, and when I factor one out, it's v squared. And then w to the 6th. And then when I factor one v out of v to the 7th, it's v to the 6th and w to the 8th. So far I've looked at the numbers and I factored out a 4. And then I looked at the v's and I factored out one v. Now I'm going to look at the w's. Really, I guess I should have been a little bit more precise here. Let me see something. I should have only highlighted the v's because that's all we were actually looking at there. But now we're going to look at the w's. And I did them all in the same color, and that's just sloppy highlighting. So sorry. There we go. All right, so now we're going to look at the w's. So those are what I'm looking at. And because w to the 4th is the smallest one, I can factor w to the 4th out of each of them. So I'm going to, again, I'm going to use, let's see, I'm going to grab a purple. And so from each of these, I can factor out w to the 4th power. So I have my 4, I have my v, and then I have my w, which is going to be w to the 4th power. And when I factor w to the 4th out of there, it's just 1. So all I have is 3 left from this term right here, plus 7v squared. And when I factor w to the 4th out of w to the 6th, I'm just left with w squared. And then I have plus v to the 6th. And when I factor w to the 4th out of there, it's w to the 4th. And that is, yeah, so we subtract w to the 4th power. We don't subtract it, we're dividing it out. But the way you can think of it is, 4 minus 4 leaves 0 w's. 6 minus 4 leaves 2 w's. 6 minus 4 leaves 2. And 8 minus 4 leaves 4 w's. And the reason why that is, if you think about it, let's look at this term. Well, actually, we'll start with this term right here. So if we start with 12v w to the 4th, let's see, I'm going to actually bring it down. So we're starting with this term right here, and we ended up factoring this out, right? So I'm going to divide that by 4v w to the 4th. And if we think about what w to the 4th means, this actually means w times w times w times w, right? Because that's what w to the 4th means. And in the whoa, where did that w go? That was weird. And in the denominator, we have 4v w times w times w times w. And so each of these w's cancels out, right? And the v's cancel. And 12 divided by 4 is 3. So That's why we end up with just a 3 in there. Now, if I distributed this to each of those, we would be right back to where we started. And that's an important thing too. All right. So that is the first step really in factoring. It's just factoring out from each term the greatest common factor.